No, please, don't take me. Help me.
The night smelled of smoke and blood. Sarah's wrists burned where the rope cut into her skin as two soldiers dragged her across broken ground, her bare feet catching on stones she couldn't see in the dark. Around her, the battlefield still breathed, fires collapsing into embers, distant screams fading into silence, the metallic tang of violence hanging in the air like something alive. She twisted against the men holding her, and one of them backhanded her hard enough that her vision blurred white. "Keep struggling," he said in accented Korean, "and it will be worse for you." Sarah's hand closed instinctively around the small wooden pendant hanging from her neck, the only thing her mother had left her before she died. She pressed it against her chest as if her palm alone could keep it from being ripped away. She didn't know why they wanted her. She didn't know why, out of an entire village, the raiders had come straight for her tent, straight for her, as though they'd known exactly where to find her. That thought terrified her more than the men dragging her. They pulled her toward the enemy camp, past rows of soldiers sharpening blades, past cages holding other captured villagers who wouldn't meet her eyes. Sarah's chest heaved. She thought of her father's face. She thought that she might never see the village again. Then the night exploded. A war cry cut through the camp, followed by the sound of steel meeting steel, of men shouting orders, of chaos erupting in every direction. Sarah was thrown to the ground as her captors spun toward the noise, weapons raised. Through the firelight she saw him. A lone warrior moved through the enemy ranks like something that didn't belong to the mortal world. Precise, merciless, unstoppable. His blade found throats before men could finish raising their swords. He didn't shout. He didn't hesitate. He simply ended everything in his path with a calm that felt more frightening than rage. Sarah couldn't look away. Behind him, a unit of warriors tore through the camp, but it was him the enemy soldiers feared most. Men who had dragged her through the dirt moments ago were now the ones scrambling backward, shouting his name. A name she couldn't quite hear over the chaos. He reached her captors in seconds. One swing. Two. Then silence where they had stood. Sarah looked up at him, chest heaving, too stunned to move. Blood streaked his jaw. His eyes, sharp, dark, unreadable, studied her for a long moment, as if assessing not just her injuries, but something deeper. "Can you walk?" he asked. His voice was low, controlled. Nothing like the violence he'd just delivered. Sarah tried to answer, but her voice came out as a whisper. Her whole body trembled. Without a word, he unfastened the heavy cloak from his shoulders and wrapped it around her, covering the torn fabric of her dress, covering the marks on her arms, covering her shame. It was the first time in hours that Sarah didn't feel like prey. "Who are you?" she managed. He didn't answer. He simply lifted her, not gently, not roughly, but with the efficient care of a man who had carried wounded soldiers off battlefields before. If you were rescued by a man like this and he refused to tell you his name, would you trust him, or would the mystery make you more afraid? Drop your theory below on who you think he really is. And if you want the rest of this story, make sure you're subscribed, because what Sarah discovers next changes everything. The journey back to the village took most of the night. Sarah sat wrapped in his cloak while he walked beside the horse, leading it through narrow paths lit only by moonlight. She kept glancing at him, waiting for him to ask questions, to demand answers, to treat her like something broken. He didn't. When she flinched at a sound in the trees, he simply said, "It's an animal, nothing more," without breaking stride. When her hands shook too hard to hold the water skin he offered, he steadied it for her without comment, without pity in his eyes. Just quiet patience. "You're not going to tell me your name," Sarah said eventually. It wasn't a question anymore. "No." Why? Because it doesn't matter right now. His eyes flicked toward her. What matters is that you're alive. Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten. Not fear this time. Something else. They stopped once near a stream where he checked the rope burns on her wrists with clinical focus, wrapping them with strips of cloth torn from his own sleeve. His hands were steady, careful. He didn't touch her longer than necessary, didn't let his gaze linger anywhere that would embarrass her. For the first time since she'd been taken, Sarah didn't feel like an object being handled. She felt like a person being protected. "Thank you," she whispered. He only nodded, already turning back toward the horse, as if kindness were something he didn't know how to sit inside for long. By the time they reached the outskirts of her village, dawn was breaking, gray light spilling over the huts and fences Sarah had known her whole life. She should have felt relief. Instead, a cold unease crept through her, because waiting near the village gates, alerted by a runner who must have gone ahead, stood two of the village elders, men who had known her since she was a child, men who should have looked relieved to see her alive. Instead, one of them went pale the moment his eyes landed on the warrior beside her. He took a step back, then another. Sarah frowned, glancing between the elder's frightened face and the stranger's unreadable one. "You," the elder said, voice cracking, "you shouldn't be here." The warrior's expression didn't change, but something in his posture sharpened, like a blade being drawn without ever leaving its sheath. Sarah's stomach dropped. The enemy had known exactly which tent was hers. They had known exactly when to strike. And now, standing in front of her, was a man who had clearly just recognized someone he wasn't supposed to see again. Someone with secrets buried far deeper than Sarah could have imagined. She had survived the battlefield. She had no idea the real danger was only beginning, and it had been living inside her own village the entire time. Sarah didn't sleep that first night back in the village. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the elder's face, the way it had drained of color the moment he saw the warrior beside her. Fear like that didn't come from nowhere. It came from history, from guilt. By morning, she learned his name was Kang Chi. Not from him. He still refused to give her anything more than that. But from the villagers who whispered it like it belonged to someone dangerous. He stayed near the village longer than he needed to. He told the village he was escorting a unit assessing raider movement in the region. No one questioned him. No one dared. Sarah watched him from a distance those first few days, still wrapped in the borrowed cloak she hadn't returned. He didn't approach her directly, but he was always somewhere nearby, sharpening a blade near her family's hut, walking the perimeter at night, present in a way that felt less like coincidence and more like purpose. On the third day, she brought him a bowl of food without being asked. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I know." She set it down anyway. "You didn't have to save me either." Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close enough that Sarah felt it in her chest. Over the following days, small moments accumulated between them. He noticed things about her she hadn't told him. That she favored her left side after long walks, old pain from years of labor. That she touched the wooden pendant at her neck whenever she was afraid. He never commented on it directly. He simply adjusted, quietly, the way a person does when they're paying attention without wanting to be caught doing it. Sarah found herself trusting him in ways she couldn't explain to herself, let alone to anyone else. But trust didn't erase her questions. "Why did that elder look at you like he'd seen a ghost?" she asked one evening, sitting across from him near the fire. Kang Chi's jaw tightened. "Because he has reason to fear men who ask questions he doesn't want asked." "What questions?" "About who told the raiders where to find you." Sarah's breath caught. "You think it was him?" "I think," Kang Chi said carefully, that someone in this village sold you to men who should never have known your name. The words settled over her like ice water. She confronted the elder the next morning, cornering him near the grain stores while the village went about its routines around them. "Tell me the truth," she said, voice shaking but steady enough to be heard. "Did you know they were coming for me?" The elder's eyes darted toward the tree line, toward anywhere but her face. "You're imagining things, child. Grief does strange things to the mind." "I'm not grieving. I'm asking you a question." "You should be grateful you're alive," he snapped, "instead of accusing the people who raised you." He walked away before she could push further, but Sarah had seen it, the flicker of panic beneath his anger. He was lying. She was certain of it. That night, someone tried to kill her. She woke to a hand pressing down over her mouth, a blade glinting inches from her throat and the moonlight leaking through the hut's window. Sarah thrashed, adrenaline exploding through her limbs, and managed to scream once before the intruder silenced her again. Then the door burst open. Kang Chi moved faster than thought, faster than fear. The intruder barely had time to turn before he was disarmed, slammed against the wall hard enough to crack the wood. Sarah scrambled back, chest heaving, watching Kang Chi's face transform into something cold and lethal. The same face she'd seen the night he tore through the enemy camp. "Who sent you?" Kang Chi demanded, voice low enough to shake the room. The man said nothing. Kang Chi's grip tightened until the man finally choked out a name Sarah didn't recognize, before falling unconscious from the pressure at his throat. Sarah sat frozen on the floor, shaking uncontrollably, staring at the blade that had almost opened her throat. She wasn't safe. Not even inside her own home. Not even among her own people. "How do you know so much about them?" she whispered, once she could finally speak. "The enemy, their movements. Who sent that man? You know things a soldier shouldn't know." Kang Chi hesitated, the first time she had ever seen him hesitate. Before he could answer, the sound of hooves thundered outside. Torches lit the dark. A unit of soldiers in unmistakable royal colors flooded into the village, dropping to one knee the instant they saw him. "Your Highness," the lead soldier said, bowing his head. "Forgive the delay. We came as soon as we located you." Sarah's entire body went still. "Your Highness." She looked at Kang Chi, waiting for this to be some misunderstanding, some mistake, but his expression told her everything before he said a single word. "Sarah!" "You're the Crown Prince," her voice cracked. "You let me believe you were just a soldier. You let me trust you without ever telling me who you actually were. I couldn't reveal my identity in enemy territory. It would have put you in more danger. That's not the same as lying to me for days afterward." Her hands trembled. "I trusted you with things I don't even tell people I've known my whole life. If the person who saved your life had hidden something this big from you, would you be able to forgive them? Or would the lie change everything you felt for them? Some of you are already commenting your answer. I want to hear it, so like this video and tell me honestly, because what happens next is going to test that answer completely." Kang Chi stepped closer, something raw breaking through his usual restraint. "Sarah, I never lied about who I am toward you. Only about my title. A title that means everything," she said. "That's not a small thing to hide." Before he could respond, the ground shook with the sound of screaming. Fire lit the night sky beyond the huts. Villagers scattered in every direction as a second wave of raiders tore through the village, faster and better organized than the first attack, as though they had known exactly when Kang Chi's guard would be lowered. Kang Chi turned instantly, weapon already drawn, shouting orders to his soldiers. Sarah tried to run toward safety, toward anywhere, but hands seized her from behind, dragging her backward into the chaos and smoke. She screamed his name once, before a cloth was forced over her mouth. By the time Kang Chi turned to find her, Sarah was gone. Sarah woke to the smell of damp earth and burning oil. Her wrists were bound again, rougher this time, tied to a wooden post inside what looked like an old hunting lodge deep in the forest. Her head throbbed. Her mouth was dry from the cloth that had silenced her screams. Voices drifted from beyond the door, low, urgent, arguing in a dialect she only partly understood. Then the door opened and a woman stepped inside. Sarah recognized her instantly. Mira, the daughter of the village elder who had lied to her days earlier. "You," Sarah breathed. "You're part of this?" Mira's face was tight with something that wasn't quite guilt. "You don't understand what your family did." "My family didn't do anything to anyone." "Your mother did." Mira crouched in front of her. "Before you were born. She carried proof of a crime that could destroy men close to the throne. Documents. A confession written by someone who feared what he'd done. When she died, she hid it somewhere. Somewhere connected to you." Sarah's mind spun. "I don't know anything about documents." "Doesn't matter what you know," Mira said quietly. "It matters what they believe you know." "They," Sarah repeated. "Who are they?" Mira's jaw tightened, and for a moment something flickered behind her eyes, not cruelty, but exhaustion. Fear worn thin from carrying a secret too long. "People who could ruin my family the way they ruined others who asked too many questions. I didn't want this. I was told to give them information about your movements, or my father would be the next name on their list." Sarah stared at her, chest aching with something complicated, anger tangled with a reluctant understanding. Betrayal born from fear was still betrayal, but it wasn't the same as cruelty for its own sake. "You could have told someone," Sarah said. "You could have told me." "And risked everything I have left?" Mira's voice cracked. "You don't know what it's like to watch people vanish for speaking the wrong name." Before Sarah could respond, shouting erupted outside. Miles away, Kang Chi had already torn through half the forest looking for her. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He had ignored 2 direct messages from the royal court ordering him to return to the palace immediately, prioritizing the search for stolen documents over a village girl of no political significance. He burned both messages without reading them twice. His soldiers had never seen him like this, reckless in a way that didn't match his usual precision, driven by something sharper than duty. When one of his officers suggested waiting for reinforcements before storming the suspected hideout, Kang Chi didn't slow his stride. "She has been gone 11 hours, he said. "We move now." They found the lodge just before nightfall. Inside, Sarah heard the commotion first. Steel against steel, shouting, chaos breaking through the walls. Mira's expression shifted from fear to panic. "They'll kill me if they think I helped you," she whispered. "Then help me now," Sarah said, straining against the ropes. "Truly help me. Not because you're forced to, because it's right." For a long moment Mira didn't move. Then she reached forward and cut the ropes. "I am sorry," Mira said, voice breaking. "For all of it." Sarah didn't have time to answer. The door slammed open, and one of the raiders who had taken her stepped inside, blade already raised, not toward Mira, but toward Sarah, silencing the only witness who could expose the operation. Sarah moved before she could think, shoving Mira aside, grabbing the first thing within reach, a heavy iron ladle from the lodge's hearth, and swinging it hard enough to stagger the man for the 2 seconds she needed to scream. It was the only 2 seconds that mattered. Kang Chi appeared in the doorway like something summoned by the sound of her voice alone. His eyes found her first, then the blade inches from her throat. The room went utterly silent except for his breathing. Slow, deliberate, terrifying in its control. "How dare you touch my babe?" The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They cut through the room like the edge of a blade already in motion. The raider barely had time to react before Kang Chi closed the distance and ended it. Sarah's knees buckled the moment the threat was gone, and Kang Chi caught her before she hit the ground, one arm wrapping around her like he intended never to let another hand near her again. Are you still on Sarah's side, after learning who Mira really is? Or do you understand why she did it? Type your answer right now while the story keeps going, because the next reveal changes who the real enemy actually is. Once Sarah could breathe steadily again, she looked toward Mira, still trembling near the wall. She helped me, Sarah said. In the end, she helped me. Kang Chi studied Mira for a long moment, something unreadable passing behind his eyes. Then he turned to one of his soldiers. She's a witness, not a criminal. Protect her. Mira exhaled like she hadn't breathed properly in years. But the relief in the room didn't last. One of Kang Chi's officers approached, holding a folded parchment recovered from the raiders' hideout, a set of orders bearing a royal seal that made Kang Chi's entire posture change the moment he saw it. This isn't just Mira's father, the officer said quietly. The orders came from inside the palace. Kang Chi's expression hardened into something Sarah hadn't seen from him before. Not anger, but dread. Whose seal? He asked. The officer hesitated before answering. Lord Hyunwoo, your father's most trusted advisor. Sarah watched the color drain slightly from Kang Chi's face, watched years of unspoken suspicion finally take physical shape. He's been positioning himself for the throne for years, Kang Chi said slowly, almost to himself. If your mother's documents expose the crime he committed to get there, then I'm not just a village girl who got caught in the wrong raid, Sarah finished. I'm the only person standing between him and everything he wants. Kang Chi met her eyes, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw something close to fear in his expression. Not for himself, but for her. This isn't over, he said quietly. It's only just becoming dangerous. Sarah swallowed hard, but this time, when fear rose in her chest, something steadier rose beside it. She was done being someone things happened to. 3 days later, the summons arrived. Kang Chi was ordered to the palace, alone. Sarah was not invited. The message made that distinction with deliberate cruelty. They want to isolate you, Sarah said, watching him read the scroll in the dim light of the hut Mira's family had opened to them. Separate you from the one person who can prove what Lord Hyunwoo did. They want me to abandon you, Kang Chi said, quietly, before this becomes something the court can't control. Will you? He looked at her like the question itself was an insult. No. The court's second message came within the hour, less diplomatic than the first. If Kang Chi continued protecting a village woman connected to a treason investigation, his claim to the throne would be formally challenged. His father's trust, his title, years of loyalty from men who had once knelt before him, all of it would be reconsidered. Sarah watched the weight of that settle over him, and for the first time she saw exactly how much this would cost him. You don't have to choose me over your entire future, she said quietly. I already have. His voice didn't waver. The question was never whether I would choose, only how long it would take the court to accept it. They rode for the palace at dawn, not to surrender, but to confront the one man who had orchestrated everything from behind a mask of loyalty. Lord Hyunwoo received them in the throne hall, composed, dignified, utterly unbothered, a man who had spent decades perfecting the art of looking innocent. Your Highness, he said smoothly, bringing an unverified village girl into the royal court is a reckless decision, even for you. She's not unverified, Kang Chi said. She's the daughter of the woman who could have exposed you 23 years ago. A flicker crossed Hyunwoo's face, small, controlled, but real. Careful with accusations you cannot prove, he said. This was the moment the court expected Kang Chi to speak for her, to present the evidence, to fight the battle so Sarah wouldn't have to. He didn't. He stepped back instead, just enough to make it clear whose voice this belonged to. Sarah stepped forward. Her hands trembled at her sides, old fear still living somewhere in her chest, but her voice came out steady when she finally spoke. "My mother didn't die from illness like everyone was told," she said, loud enough for the gathered court to hear. "She died running from men sent to silence her, because she witnessed Lord Hunwu falsify the succession records that removed a rightful heir from this family's bloodline. She hid proof of it, and buried it somewhere connected to me, which is why his men have spent weeks trying to capture me instead of simply killing me outright. He needed to know what I knew before deciding whether I lived or died." The hall fell into stunned silence. "Lies," Hyunwoo said, though his voice had lost its earlier composure. "Fabrications from a frightened girl desperate for royal protection." "Then explain the seal on the orders found in the raiders' hideout," Sarah said, meeting his eyes without flinching. "Explain why Mira's father feared you, more than he feared losing his own daughter's trust. Explain why a man secure in his innocence needed to send soldiers after a woman who owns nothing but a wooden pendant and a mother's memory." Whispers rippled through the court. Advisors exchanged glances. Even the king, seated above them, leaned forward with an expression that had shifted from doubt to something colder. Hyunwoo's mask finally cracked. "You have no idea what you've done," he said, voice low, venomous. "I know exactly what I've done," Sarah answered. "I stopped being afraid of you." Guards moved at the king's signal. Hyunwoo was seized before he could reach the exit, his decades of quiet manipulation collapsing in the space of a single confrontation. The conspiracy unraveled quickly after that. The village elders who had sold information exposed and removed, the raiders' operation dismantled, the palace forced to confront a truth it had buried for over 2 decades. Kang Chi's position, once threatened, was restored, not because he had abandoned Sarah, but because he hadn't. Weeks later, they returned to the battlefield where it had all begun. The fires were gone now, the screaming silence. Only wind moving through open ground where soldiers had once fought, and Sarah had once been dragged toward a fate she couldn't control. She still wore his cloak. She unfastened it slowly and held it out to him. "Why?" Kang Chi asked, studying her face. "Because I don't need to hide inside your protection anymore," she said. "I can stand beside you instead." Something shifted in his expression, not surprise, but recognition, like he was seeing the fullest version of her for the first time. He didn't take the cloak. He took her hand instead. "Then stand beside me," he said quietly. "Not behind me. Beside me." Sarah smiled, the cloak slipping from her fingers to the ground between them, forgotten. They walked forward together, back toward the village, toward a life neither of them could have imagined the night everything began. If you believe Sarah earned every bit of that courage, let me know in the comments. And if this story moved you, make sure you're subscribed, because stories like this one are only just getting started.